Welcome back now to our leading story this morning. Schools are caught in the crossfire of South Africa's most combustible debate, immigration and the access to education. Operation Dudula, many consider the controversial grassroots movement, has taken its campaign directly to the school gates in Soweto, delivering notices warning principals not to admit undocumented migrant children in the 2026 academic year. They argue that limited resources must first serve South African learners, a position some as protection of citizens' rights, while others condemn it as unconstitutional and discriminatory. This move has already ignited fierce backlash from the Gauteng Department of Education, civil society, and human rights groups who insist every child has an undeniable right to education, regardless of paperwork. And joining me now is the national chairperson of Operation Dudula, Zandile Dabula. She's at the very center of this debate, of this firestorm, and she's here to explain why her movement believes this is the right course of action. Zandile, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Salam Media.
Good morning, and good morning to the listeners at home. Thank you so much for having us today.
Pleasure's all ours. I think let's begin with what happened on Monday. Operation Dudula physically went to Soweto schools and delivered notices warning against enrolling undocumented children. What message were you sending, and why now specifically? Some people were asking, well, you could have done this earlier in the year. Most South African children are in schools, they are enrolled. Is it, a bit too late?
So the reason why we decided to start now is that initially our program is going to be in January, first days of the school. But we then decided then that let's go have a discussion with the heads of the schools. Let's see what challenges are they facing, and just also to give them just that warning that they should not be surprised to see us during school days in January, because we will be there, because all we are just reminding them is that we want them to follow the law. I mean, the law says it straight that if there is a foreign child in the school, they should have proper documents. But because we know that's not happening, we've been getting put off, and we drafted a letter, stated those laws, and with the new Bella Act, it also emphasizes on those laws. But what we also found out is that the very same department is contradicting itself here. They're giving Bella Act, which states the laws, but also giving, the heads of the school 3 months probation so that they can make sure that every child that is in the school is documented. Now, what the schools need to do is that they need to admit all children, whether documented or not, and then to follow up 3 months later. But what happens after 3 months when the child is unable to be documented? Because now talking about a child of a foreigner, you're going to have a study visa, you need to get a study visa whilst you're back home. You can't get a study visa when you're here in South Africa. Those are the documents that you get when you're home. And, the department is not doing justice to the people of South Africa. The schools that we targeted on the day were the schools that we got tip off that there are many children who are undocumented in those schools, and that's why we started there before going to the former multiracial schools, where we know that most of those schools have been flocked in by foreign nationals. So it was just going there. We went there peacefully, and we did not obstruct any school proceedings, because we understand that there are examinations that are underway, and our campaign will definitely start in January. For now, we're just pushing our letters to the heads so that they understand where we're coming from, because all we want is that we want prioritization of our South African kids. It cannot be correct that we will have South African children without a desk and a chair, yet we have foreigners who comfortably and enjoying the basic needs of a South African child when they are deprived from them.
You mentioned the Bella Act, but you failed to mention the Constitution, which is quite clear. It says every child in South Africa has the right to basic education regardless of immigration status. But by telling schools to exclude undocumented children, isn't Operation Dudula effectively calling on principals to break the law?
So the constitution of this country is protecting the citizens, is protecting South Africans. There's no country that will draft a constitution and draft it based on foreigners. There's no way. That's the same reason why we have immigration laws. Now, the rights that are spoken about in the Constitution are the rights of South Africans. That's why in the preamble it says that we, the people of South Africa, in our diversity. It's not saying we, the people of the world, or we, the people of the African continent. No, it's saying we, the people of South Africa, in our diversity. So it was drafted after the apartheid time. It was the inclusion of, the excluded ones, the excluded races, colored, Indians, and black. Now, we cannot want to talk about the Constitution and, quote those sections where it needs to favor foreigners. The immigration laws are clear. When you come to South Africa, you need to be properly documented. If you are here to study or you must be schooling, then you will have your study visa. Now, a study visa will mean that you are able to pay for your own fees or make means that you will be properly documented. Now, why are we finding school kids who are foreigners without visas? That's why I'm saying that the people that are breaking the laws are the departments and also the school principals, because this is clear. And, even the immigration law says it's clear that if you're harboring illegal foreigner, then you are committing crime. You must be sentenced or fined. But all of that is not happening. That's why I'm saying that these departments are not talking to these laws and are not talking to each other, and they keep contradicting themselves. We have laws. We are just mainly making sure that the laws are being enforced.
Mm-hmm. I think you've come out, several times to explain that, this campaign isn't xenophobic. But there are those that are saying you're targeting children, some of whom were born here in South Africa and know no other home but South Africa. How do you then justify essentially punishing kids for paperwork that could have been the fault of Home Affairs, for instance, and it could have been the fault of adults, their parents, and Home Affairs or other various government departments? These are innocent children. They just want to go to school, and you're denying them that.
Are you talking about kids of the foreigners, or are you talking about South Africans? Because what we also came across
kids of foreigners who were born here in South Africa.
Okay, now you can't be a child of a foreigner who is undocumented. Both your parents are undocumented, and then you want to be documented as a child. You can't. If your parents are here in South Africa, they're properly documented, you should be documented as well. Why is it that we find children in these schools that are undocumented? How do you even link a child to a parent? Because that's another thing that we've been discussing with the principals to say, how do you link a child to the mother, to the so-called mother, because there's no documentation? How do you know that they are really their biological parents? Because looking at human trafficking, many kids have been trafficked into South Africa. Now, is the department, promoting crime? Are they saying that people should continue traffic people from different parts of the world and bring them here to South Africa to get free education? And these are public. We're talking about public facilities here. If really they want their kids to be educated, they're not stopping them from going to private schools. They can go to private schools and pay for the services. But if they are well documented with all of the listed, your study visas, your permanent residence, and everything that's listed on there, they don't have to wait for all South African kids to be admitted in those schools. Then they can come up and we don't have a problem. But also pay for the services. So we are against illegality. There are laws in this country. We just need to abide by the laws. And let's not put feelings into these discussions, because when I go to Lesotho, I will not be able to go through the country without proper documents. And I tell you, and it's a fact, that in other countries, not even in Zimbabwe, South Africans can get free education, no free health services. We've seen many times when our South Africans have been arrested for being undocumented in those countries, and even being sent away at healthcare facilities for not having money to pay for the services that they need to be getting. So why is it inhuman? Why is it xenophobic when it's done in South Africa, when in their countries it cannot be done? So if everyone is saying we are all Africans, we should be treating each other the same, why are they not treating us the same in their own countries? Are they saving their resources for their own citizens? Yet we must share our limited resources with the whole world. It's not possible.
Mm. How do you respond to criticism that looks at things from this angle? They're saying these children are already here in South Africa. Most of them, let's be honest, can't afford private education, and excluding them from the classroom and South Africa's education systems and schools only deepens poverty, only creates resentment, and to a large extent fuels crime, because these kids are going to grow up, they're not skilled, they didn't go to school, they'll turn out to be criminals. Do you see a risk of your campaign being perceived, in that light, that you'll further perpetuate some of these social ills that we see already existing in the country?
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't, because we shouldn't even be discussing people who are undocumented in the country. They should be sent back home. That's the reason why we've been saying that we want mass deportation, so that we can have our own family meeting in South Africa that limits the in and out of people who are undocumented, so that we can know who's there and what is it that we do next with the ones that claim to be legal in the country. They shouldn't even be growing up here. They should go back home. Their parents should go back home and fix the issues that they have in the country. Now, whilst we're looking at those critics, we also need to look at the South Africans that are having challenges of not getting school. I mean, the last child that we tried to get a school in last year was in March. This means that this South African child lost first phase of his education for that year, because all the schools that they went to, it was already packed. Now you're sitting with a situation where one classes are overcrowded. One class is supposed to accommodate plus minus 60 children per class. It's a burden for educators. They will not even be able to focus on a specific child that needs a special attention to better their education. Now, is it fair for that South African child that needs to get quality education? They not get that, being deprived because of we have influx of foreign nationals. Every critic must also look at the positive side of it, and also look at the disadvantaged South Africans, because remember, we're not just going to schools. We don't just talk about these issues. We get support. We get complaints from parents. Our parents have been shouting to say that we know that we're going to battle with getting space for our kids in schools when it comes January. We run around like headless chickens, yet the schools that we prefer, that are closer to where we live, are blocked in by foreign nationals. So that's what we're doing. We're helping our own South Africans. We're putting our South African kids first, and because we want them to have a better quality education.
Mm. Before I let you go, I'd like to just segue a bit. There was a report that came out. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. That the EFF has opened a case against Operation Dudula because of I think Gracie Banda from Alexander, who unfortunately says she lost her child because members of Operation Dudula prevented her from entering a clinic in Alexander. I know that the issue is sub judice. It's a legal matter. But did you have a response to that? Have you received any summons from the courts? And then how do you respond to the EFF taking the stance against you guys?
I've never received any formal communication from the law enforcers. I'm still waiting. And these unfound allegations need to stop. I mean, for the past 3 weeks now, EFF has been in a campaign to discredit and decampaign Operation Dudula, and myself personally, I'm sure you would have seen in all social media platforms, but it's not working. Now, I also want to talk about false reporting when it comes to the journalists. Now, looking at the interview 405, where the lady was interviewing the mother of the late child, The woman kept saying, he said that 3 times, that the people that actually blocked her from the hospital were wearing green t-shirts. Now, Operation Dudula, we don't have green t-shirts. We have white t-shirts. Now, you look at the strip on the television, it says blocked by Operation Dudula, when the mother did not say that. So who is fooling who here? We are watching very closely. And, we are expecting to hear from the law enforcers. And, the investigations must just continue if there are any investigations. And we'll hear on the outcome. And, we are not faceless. We will account if there's any accountability that needs to be considered. But we here wait for the investigations to be concluded, and we'll talk about it once the case has been concluded.
Well, there you have it, Zandile Dabula, Operation Dudula. Dida, thank you so much for giving us your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Well, there you go. As I mentioned, that's Operation Dudula chairperson Zandile Dabula laying out why the movement believes undocumented children should be excluded from South Africa's schools in 2026. It's a highly contentious move. It is sparking fierce debate between the right to education and the push to protect, I think at this point we can all agree, it's scarce resources. And we'll hear a very different perspective later in the program when we'll be talking to the African Diaspora Forum. Will be giving us his insight. They are, I think, one of the biggest enemies of Operation Dudula at this point. But what do you think? You can engage with us. Our studio line is 01168000355. On WhatsApp, 061-766-0355. Do you think schools, South African schools, should prioritize citizens, should prioritize South African kids over migrant kids? They shouldn't even be considered at all. How do you respond to the fact that, most of the children that are in school right now are born here in South Africa? Most of them, if not majority of them, the only home that they know, the only home that they'll ever know is South Africa. Granted, their parents might not be documented. They themselves might not be documented. It could be because of a plethora of reasons. We know the state of home affairs and how slow they are and the inefficiencies in that department. It's concerning. It's concerning, and it raises a lot of questions about South Africa and the direction that we want to take when it comes to migration. And again, we can't be a lawless country. I think that's one thing we need to keep reminding ourselves. I think everywhere you go around the world, documentation is required. You can't just go in and out of the country and access resources of the country without having the proper documentation. But then again, these are just kids, and it's not their fault that they're not documented. And ultimately, if you deny them the right to education, what happens when they grow up and they're unskilled? What do they do now? Complain about crime in South Africa, which is largely a socioeconomic issue, which can directly be linked to education and job opportunities. So you want to cut out, we know there's a big chunk, a big population of migrants from all over the African continent who are here in South Africa, and they're having children, most of them undocumented. They're going to grow up, these people. They're going to have to integrate to society. And how do you integrate them when they don't have any skills? They're uneducated. The last resort for them becomes crime. So how do you balance the two? We have a few comments that are coming on YouTube. Abdullah Shabalala, he's saying, sounds like the problem is a lack of schools and a lack of proper salaries for teachers, not this neo-fascist Western narrative of immigrants ruining the country like we were back in 1984. That's one opinion. And Costa T on YouTube also says, does Israel fund the operation to Dudula criminals? Not too sure. We're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to continue with this conversation. We'll be getting, I think, another perspective from chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum, Dr. Vusisi Banda, that's coming in at 8:50. But before that, we'll have our hashtag Africa Focus feature. We'll be focusing on the DRC and the political power shakeup that is happening in that troubled part of the continent. Going to take a quick break. We'll be with you right after this.